Hey guys, on our how-to playlist we often make videos talking about some of the more difficult aspects of being in Japan for foreigners. So often it's cultural differences that are things that some foreigners find difficult to deal with, or most of us, or all of us, depending on what the thing is. And we know when we make those videos that a lot of people are just going to ignore them, and that's fair enough. The reason we make them is that we're just giving people a heads up so that they've heard about these things, because quite often people come to Japan and a lot of these things are pretty sort of hard to see or hard to know. And so if we talk about them first, we figure that when some people come to Japan and they see a situation or hear a situation, that they might recognize it from what we've talked about and go, I've heard about this. So, you know, our most recent video was talking about if people are rude to us, that we just can't be rude back. So our plan is that we make that video, and then when people come here, if they find themselves in a situation where they feel like someone's being rude to them, maybe they'll remember what we said in the video and think, aha, he said that, maybe they're not actually being rude, maybe it's just a cultural difference, and he said not to be rude back, okay, I might just quietly walk away. Maybe. And we know that most people, or some people, or most people, hard to know, will just totally ignore everything we've said. We know that for a fact, so that's fair enough. That everybody has a choice what they do when they come here. Our plan is just to put the information out there, and then those people who want to listen can get some benefit from it, and those people who don't want to listen can do whatever they want to do. So, you know, it's freedom, total freedom here to do whatever you want, of course. Nobody forces you to conform, but just that we know from what we've seen that if you behave in a certain way, good things will happen. If you behave in a different way, that good things probably won't happen. Yeah, quite to the contrary. So one of the reasons this can be difficult is in a lot of our cultures, a lot of our societies, we have a lot of diverse culture. So we have a lot of people from different backgrounds who do a lot of different things, a lot of different ways, and doing things in a different way is sort of admired and respected, you know. We've got a lot of sayings like that in English about, you know, he goes his own way, or she blazes her own trail, or, you know, all that sort of stuff. We admire people that do their own thing, go their own way. But in Japanese society, that's rarely the case. It's probably never the case. And so it's seen differently here. If you do things your own way here, if everybody's doing something a certain way and you do something different, it's not admired, because quite often what happens is the result of someone doing something a bit differently, even though as a foreigner we'll feel that, well, it doesn't matter if everybody's going to that restaurant and I prefer to go to that one, they can all go there and I'll go over there, it's not going to affect anybody. And that's the foreigner thinking, is that I'll just do my thing, they'll just do their thing, it's not going to be a problem. But the Japanese feeling is that if he's going over there, that, well, maybe we should go with him. So, you know, we always talk about how the main aim in Japan is to maintain the harmony, and that if, you know, there's a group of people going to one restaurant and you say you're going to go to another one, Western thinking or foreign or some cultures thinking is that, well, that's okay, he can go to that restaurant if he wants to, everyone else will go to that one, that's not going to affect anybody, why would anyone care? But Japanese feeling is, well, if he's going there, we should go too, shouldn't we? And it just puts a ripple through the harmony. You know, and then there's a whole bunch of people not quite sure what to do. Should we go with him so he's not on his own? What should we do? And then if a couple of people decide to go with him so he's not on his own, then everybody will go with him. And that would be not unusual. If you're with a group of people and you say, no, I don't want to go to the restaurant, I'm going to that one over there, it would not be unusual that they'd all decide to come with you, so that everybody's together doing the same thing. So, and, you know, and inevitably what happens is, when we make these videos talking about all these things about maintaining the harmony and so on, it's a natural reaction for people from other cultures or some other cultures to try and find a way around it. And it's just what we do. If we have something that we want to do, or that, you know, a way we want to do it, and somebody tells us that we shouldn't do it that way, it's a natural reaction for a lot of people to try and find a way around that. Well, what about if I, just a really quick sidetrack, there was a meeting maybe 20 years ago in Australia when sexual harassment laws were first brought in. The big company I was involved with had a big meeting, and the lawyer came and he was explaining sexual harassment, because the laws regarding sexual harassment and what is sexual harassment and what isn't. And the whole aim of the exercise was to protect the company from claims of sexual harassment. So the lawyer's plan was to explain to us what it was so that everybody knew not to do it. But what happened was there's all these guys at the meeting saying, but what about if I do this, and what about if I do that, and what about if, is that okay? And eventually the lawyer got frustrated and he just said, look, you guys are trying to find ways around it. In actual fact, what we've got to do is just not do it. And that was really, that keeps coming to mind when we make these videos about things and we say, you know, if someone's rude to you in Japan, it's possibly just a cultural difference, just don't be rude back. And, you know, underneath that video, there's a whole bunch of people saying, but what about if I do this instead? Or what about if that person's actually a family member or a friend? Or what about if, you know, what about this and what about that and what about this? And trying to find all these what ifs. And all those what ifs just create ripples. Because in some societies, looking for the what if and the way around it, and what about this, and what about if I want to do it my way, and what about, in a lot of societies that's considered to be okay, but in Japan it would be considered childish. Look, we've just said to you, we've just told you that in Japan everybody does it this way, and you're saying, yeah, but what if I mean, some people are just even more blatant than that. Some people just say, yeah, but I'm a foreigner, so I don't have to do it the Japanese way, I'm a foreigner. And again, sure, you can do it your way, but as we've explained many times before, if everybody's doing it one way, you do it another way, it inevitably closes doors on you. And even though you won't know, everybody will be smiling at you and telling you, and we get that too, we get people saying, oh, this video's not true because I came to Tokyo and I was in Tokyo for a week and I didn't do that, I did it my way and there was no problems, everybody was happy. Yeah, no doubt. Because the other people want to maintain the harmony as well, so they just smile at you. So if you come here and behave badly, nobody's going to tell you. Very unlikely anybody will tell you. They'll smile at you, they'll be nice to you, and you'll be thinking, oh, well, this must be okay then. What I'm doing must be okay. Doing it my own way. You know, they're all doing that, I'm doing this. They're all happy, no problem. But in actual fact, they're just maintaining the harmony as well. You know, they're not going to make ripples either, so they're just letting you think that everything's okay. They're smiling, and the way it's seen here is it's not their responsibility to tell you. You know, some societies, we see this all the time on YouTube, some societies think that it's up to them to tell everybody else what they should and shouldn't do, you know, and freely do so, don't they, you know? But Japanese society isn't like that. When you're an adult, it's considered that you're responsible for your own actions. And that's why when everybody's doing something a certain way and you try to do it another way, it's seen as selfish and childish, as if you just don't get it. You just don't get it, you know, and there's very few exceptions. When we make these videos and we talk about these things, they are a lot of big generalizations, but the reason they're generalizations is they're generally true. They're generally true, and the reason we don't respond, underneath, if you look at the how-to videos with the difficult topics about being rude or about conforming or about all these other things, if you look at all those different topics and look at the comments, there's always lots of people saying, yeah, but what about this and what about that and what about this and what about that? And the reason we don't answer those people is because we just explained. We just explain, and Japanese people will be the same. If you come here and go, but what about this and what about that and what if, they're not gonna hold your hand and explain to you why. They've already told you why. And it's the same with our videos. We make our videos and suggest what we have observed is the best thing to do. In this circumstance, we have observed that you get a better result if you do this. Now, if other people don't believe that or disagree with that or want to do it their own way, that's fine. And we're not going to try and convince anybody. And if you come here, nobody else is going to try and convince you either. You know, they're going to tell you we're doing this or everybody here does this. And if you say, oh, but what about if I, can I do this over here? Can I do this over here? They'll just be okay and smile. And then, as we've said lots of times before, you know, a week later they're having a party, or, you know, someone says, should we invite him? And, oh, no, maybe it's okay. And you don't get an invitation because you don't listen and you do things your own way, and that causes ripples in the harmony, you know. Or, you know, should we rent him an apartment? Can we help him rent an apartment? Oh, we better not, because maybe he won't conform with what you're supposed to do in the apartment. Maybe he'll do something else and we'll have problems. Yeah, we'll just leave it. You know, and they won't help you get an apartment, or they won't help you get a job, or they won't want to spend time with you, because the last thing that people here want is to be hanging out with someone that does things all differently. And a lot of foreigners come here, that it's a real trap, because when you come here, you know, you feel a bit special and a bit different, because Japan is different. You know, everybody here is sort of doing the same thing, and people turn up here and feel all windswept and interesting, as Billy Connolly would say, and you do something different here, and the reaction you'll get will be all positive. You know, oh, that's great, oh, sugoi, you know, and it's often not true. It's often not true, and people turn up here, they don't notice, because in a lot of other cultures, people just tell you if you're doing the wrong thing, or you're embarrassing them, or you're embarrassing yourself or something. You know, in a lot of cultures, people say, hey, look, you know, you can't do that, don't do that, you know, don't do that, man, you're embarrassing yourself. And here, they won't do it. It's really, really unlikely that anybody would do that here. They'll just let you embarrass yourself, and you won't know. And this is the thing, people are used to, a lot of cultures, good and bad and yes and no and all the rest of that stuff is really clear and really easy to see and really easy to understand. It's black and white, you know, good or bad, and people tell you what they're thinking, and it's all really clear. And here it's not. Here there's this veneer, and we've talked about this before, the image and the reality and the fantasy, and it's really like that here. There's this veneer of everything's okay, and everyone wants to maintain that veneer, so it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how bad what you did is, nobody's going to upset the harmony by telling you, you know, most likely. So the point of this video is just to say, look, again, if you do come to Japan and you want to do things your own way, then that's fine, you know, but we believe that what the suggestions that we're giving and the things we're talking about will make, if you listen to them, will help make your experience here more positive and save you some hassle. If you want to do it differently, of course, that's fine as well. And if you find yourself, either when you're listening to our videos, or if you're actually in Japan and there's something happening and you find yourself trying to find ways around it, you know, it's not the way. It's not the way. You've just got to go with it. There's a real going with the flow thing that goes on, and you know, whatever's happening, the best reaction that you can usually have to just about anything here is just to go with it. Okay, we're all having our baths. There's a lot of stuff here that's really, it surprises people. You know, you stay in a ryokan here, and the owner of the ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn, will come along and tell you it's time to have a bath, because they've got a schedule. They've got it worked out that, you know, these people have a bath first, and the men will all have a bath first, then the women will have a bath, and you know, and they'll come along and you'll be sitting in your room, and they'll come along and say, excuse me, in Japanese, you know, excuse me, it's time for you to have a bath. You know, and you might not want a bath then, you want to have a bath at a different time of day, and you've already got your own plan, you know, and you just got to go with it. You just got to say, oh, hi, and oh, arigato, and have your bath, you know, or it's time for breakfast. In ryokans, this is often the case. It's time for breakfast, you know, and you're sleeping. Your plan was to sleep in, you know. Time for breakfast, you know, and they've made it. It's out on the table, ready for you, you know. And so just, no, I'm sleeping in today. Not the best reaction. And again, you can do it if you want to. If you can do it if you want to, but next time you try and book into that ryokan, it's going to be full. sorry, no, we're busy that day, whatever day that is. We're fully booked. Sorry. And that's what happens. It's really subtle. It's really the penalties, the price that you pay for this sort of thing is really, really often people won't even notice. And I've seen this before. You know, we have people visit us here from Australia, and we've seen this here before, where we suggest something and they do something different, and you say, hey, did you do that? And they say yes. Oh, geez, man, really? What happened? This? Oh no, it was no problem. They'll say it was no problem. It was okay. And then you look at it, we look at it, we can see what happened. Oh no, I see, you know, and there's a consequence, and they haven't even noticed the consequence. You know, oh, why is it that, you know, that guy isn't coming on Saturday? And we know why. It's because that guy's, you know, our friend from Australia has embarrassed him or something. And it's not because anyone's bad or rude or anything. It's often the cultural difference thing. And it's really difficult. I mean, it doesn't matter how long you live here. You can live here for 10 years or 20 years, and it's still difficult, because we've got this built-in thing from our own cultures that we've grown up with of how we behave. and it's a natural thing for us. And so when someone's trying to tell us to do something that we don't want to do, or suggest that we do something we don't want to do, it's really hard for us to go with that. It's a natural reaction for us to find a way to get to do it. But you know, it's not the case. So yeah, if you, to those people who leave those comments saying, but what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this, well, yeah, sorry, we won't be answering them, because we've given the answer in the video. We've already explained it. This is what they do, you know. And for those people who come to Japan and feel that, oh, but what about, you know, but what about, you know, it's time for your bath. Oh, but what about if I want to have my bath tomorrow? Or what about if, no. Oh, just before we finish up too, there's another trap. The other trap is that occasionally, it's rare, but very occasionally in Japan, you'll come across someone whose English is really good. And that can be a real trap, because what happens is subconsciously we link the language with the culture. And if you come across somebody whose English is really good and they lived in America for 2 years and they know all about our culture and they're fascinated by their culture, and they tell you that they love foreigners because foreigners are free thinking and all this sort of stuff, and then they say to you, how are you liking Japan? Or, you know, some circumstance like that, and you say, oh, it's pretty good, but, you know, these people, I don't like this telling you when to have a bath thing, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, because what can sometimes happen is we're trying to be careful and not upset anybody, but because this person's English is really good and they tell us they're in America for 2 years and they seem to be a really sort of free-thinking sort of person who seems to understand Western culture really well, we relax and we say things to them that we might not usually say if we're talking Japanese. You know, oh, this person's different, we can tell them what we really think. No, you can't. I actually gave the example once a long time ago. The boss was like his bike sitting there. So I gave the example on another video previously about a guy that was exactly that. He lived overseas. His English was excellent. He was fascinated by Western culture. He used to go on about all the time about how, you know, Westerners are really great because they're free thinkers, and about that free thinking is really good about, well, hello, about how he wanted to do that sort of free thinking and do his own thing, and totally convincing, you know, totally convincing. And we talked about all these aspects of cultural differences that we talk about on these videos. Quite often used to run things past him and have discussions with him about these things to get the Japanese perspective. And in one conversation, he said, how is today? And I made the mistake of saying to him, oh man, you know, it's so frustrating. You know, I tried to do this, and then this was happening, and this was happening, and there was this bureaucracy went on, you know, just driving me crazy. And this guy's going on with this nonsense, and it's just ridiculous. And I don't know why they can't just computerize that thing instead of the million pieces of paper. And telling him all about this, and he went quiet. He went really quiet, and he didn't say anything. And then I said to him, are you there? And he said, he just exploded and said, what do you want me to do about it? Right? So, and that's his feeling, is that in a lot of our cultures, venting about things that bother us is perfectly normal with a friend. You know, if you've got a friend and you've got some frustrations and you're telling him your frustrations, that's perfectly normal. But in Japanese culture, it's just laying it on them. And that the only reason that you tell somebody about something like that is if you wanted their help with it. And in this circumstance, there was nothing he could do. There's nothing anybody could do. It was just a frustrating situation, and I was just venting because he was my friend and because his English was good and he was fascinated by the culture and because we'd actually talked about the bureaucracy previously. But it was a mistake. It was a mistake. It upset the harmony. It didn't matter what had happened during the day and what other dramas had happened. And it didn't matter that he'd asked. And here's the thing for those people that always ask this. What about if the person's a friend? What about if the person's a good friend? What if they're a family member? What if they're a... No, there's no exceptions. There's no exceptions. I mean, there might be, but we've never found them. You know, there's no exceptions. You know, what about your wife? What about your girlfriend? What about your... No, if you've got a Japanese wife or girlfriend, this stuff counts for them as well. Because in the same way that our cultures and our things are deep into our being, you know, the way we behave and think and feel is part of our upbringing. So the same thing that makes you feel that you should be able to do it your own way makes the Japanese person feel that you shouldn't be, that you should just be going along with what's happening. And so that doesn't matter. Just because you marry a Japanese lady doesn't mean that she's going to suddenly understand. Even if she does understand Western thinking, doesn't mean that she feels comfortable with it. It doesn't mean that when you come home at the end of the day that you can load all your frustrations onto her and that she'll just take it. She won't. She'll see you as being childish. So, you know, there's rarely an exception. If we say, you know, in Japan people do this, well, chances are almost everybody does it, you know, almost everybody does it. And the chances that you're going to meet the one person who doesn't is really unlikely. It's really possible that there is, out of 127 million, that when we say everybody does something, it's possible that there's a few that don't. But the chances that you happen to be talking to one of them, or that you happen to be, you know, boyfriend or girlfriend of one of them, or whatever, is really remote. So anyway, again, please, of course, please do whatever you want to do when you come here. But these videos are for those people who just want a few tips that might help make life easier when they come here. So hopefully that helps somebody. Now I've got to go up the side street that I was looking for. Just up here. More videos coming soon.